Here we go. Hello and welcome to Mastermind. Tonight we are once again at the University College of North Wales in Bangor in the Pritchard Jones Hall. And this hall forms part of the main college buildings erected in the early years of this century when the original university's accommodation proved too cramped. Pritchard Jones was an Anglesey man of humble origins who rose to become managing director of Dickens & Jones and a vice president of the college. Now, since 1911, generations of undergraduates have sat university examinations in this hall, and under examination tonight, our four contenders are a solicitor from Basingstoke in Hampshire, a museum researcher from Carmarthen near Pontypool in Gwent, a teacher from Bonchurch on the Isle of Wight, and a computer consultant from Albourne near Marlborough. And their chosen specialized subjects are the history of the rose, the German statesman Bismarck, early British feminists, and the history of the Swiss Confederation. And so may I have our first contender, please? Your name, please?
Ben Maunder.
Occupation?
Solicitor.
And your chosen specialized subject?
The history of the rose from 1500 to 1850.
Ben Maunder, you have 2 minutes on the history of the rose between those dates, starting... Now, who helped to initiate the fashion for roses by creating a great collection of them at Malmaison?
The Empress Josephine.
Correct. Whose herbal or general history of plants published in 1597 included an early systematic account of roses?
Gerard.
Correct. Of the China roses that revolutionized the roses of the West, what color was the one imported by Gilbert Slater around 1792?
That was pink.
No, it was crimson. Which double yellow rose from Asia has been cultivated in Europe since the early 17th century?
Rosa hemispherica.
Yes, a sulfur rose. What is the common name of Rosa levigata of China, found in North America by the first white settlers and brought to Europe around 1696?
Pass.
From which province is it generally agreed that the moss rose came to England in the 1720s?
Carcassonne.
No, it's South Holland. Who was the pupil of Linnaeus credited with bringing a China rose from Canton to Uppsala in 1752?
Peter Osbeck.
Correct. Which battle of 1759 is commemorated each year on August the 1st by men of a Suffolk regiment wearing roses in their hats?
Minden.
Correct. Who is the rice planter and owner of the Charleston grounds in South Carolina where the Noisette rose originated?
John Champneys.
Correct. Where in England was a garden where Mr. Parsons grew the pink China rose that bears his name?
Leytonstone.
No, Rickmansworth. In 1815, which French plant grower saved 10,000 rose seedlings by moving them from the path of the Allied army marching to Paris?
Vibert.
Correct. Who wrote the text for Redouté's color plates in the classic book Les Roses, published from 1817?
Torrey.
Correct. In which ocean is the island situated where the Bourbon rose was discovered around 1817?
Indian Ocean.
Correct. The first Bourbon roses were a chance hybridization of the pink China rose and which other rose?
The autumn damask.
Correct. Who was the gardener of King Louis Philippe, who raised the first Bourbon rose in France?
Jacques.
Correct. Who is credited, I've just started so I'll finish, who is credited with bringing the Rosa lutea from Austria to England around 1583, where it became known as the Austrian briar?
Miller.
No, it was Clusius. And at the end of that round, and Maunder, you have scored 11 points. You passed on just one. The common name of the Rosa levigata of China, which was found in North America by the first white settlers and brought to Europe around 1696, is the Cherokee rose. Ben Maunder, thank you very much. Our second contender, please. Your name, please.
David McCulloch.
Occupation.
Museum researcher.
And your chosen specialized subject?
The life and career of Otto von Bismarck.
David McCulloch, you have 2 minutes on the life and career of Bismarck, Starting. Now, Bismarck was born at Schönhausen, but on which family estate in Pomerania did he spend his boyhood?
Varzin.
No, Kniefhof. At which university did Bismarck allegedly fight 25 duels as a law student?
Göttingen.
Correct. In which country was Bismarck serving as ambassador in 1862 when he was recalled to be appointed Prussia's prime minister?
France.
Correct. What popular name for the newspaper founded by Bismarck's political circle was derived from the Iron Cross on its front page?
Kreuzzeitung.
Correct. In August 1864, at which residence did Bismarck hold talks with Austria on treaty revision in Central Europe?
Gastein.
No, Schönbrunn. Who was a Russian diplomat's wife with whom Bismarck had a sentimental friendship in the 1860s?
Princess Orloff.
Correct. To which parliamentary committee did Bismarck make his so-called blood and iron speech?
Foreign Affairs Committee.
No, it was a budget committee. In October 1865, where did Bismarck and Napoleon III meet for their first talks on possible frontier revision?
Biarritz.
Correct. In which castle did Bismarck conclude a preliminary armistice with Austria in July 1866?
Pass.
In 1872, whom did Bismarck appoint as Kultusminister to help limit the power of the church?
Falk.
Correct. Who led the Centre Party during the Kulturkampf and was regarded by Bismarck as a bitter enemy?
Windhorst.
Correct. In April 1851, to which diplomatic post was Bismarck appointed by Frederick William IV?
Minister to the Federalist Diet.
The minister, did you say?
Yeah, ambassador.
Yes. What name is given to Bismarck's long memorandum of 1861 urging William I to summon a national assembly for all Germany?
Pass.
Which Jewish banker based in Berlin was Bismarck's close friend and confidential business agent?
Becker.
No, it was Bleichroeder. Which Prussian ambassador with whom Bismarck clashed seriously over French policy was convicted for retaining official documents?
Holstein.
No, von Arnim. And at the end of that round, David McCullough, you have scored 8 points. You passed on to the castle in which Bismarck concluded a preliminary armistice with Austria in July 1866 was Nikolausberg, and the name of Bismarck's long memorandum of 1861, wanting a national assembly, was the Baden-Baden Memorial. David McCullough, thank you very much. And our third contender, please. Your name, please.
Martin Addyman,
Occupation.
teacher.
And your chosen specialized subject.
British feminists, 1759 to 1886.
Martin Addyman, you have 2 minutes on British feminists between those dates, starting. Now, who wrote Memoirs of the Author of a Vindication of the Rights of Woman?
Godwin.
Correct. Under which principle did Cheltenham Ladies' College come to considerable prominence in the development of secondary education for girls?
Beale.
Correct. What was the name of the press founded by Emily Faithfull in 1860 for which all the compositors were women?
Victoria.
Correct. Who wrote the early feminist novel Memoirs of Emma Courtney, published in 1796?
Catherine Macaulay.
No, Mary Hayes. In the mid-1850s, who pleaded for more opportunities for women in her lectures Sisters of Charity and Community of Labour?
Pass.
Who wrote the article on female education, published in the Unitarian Monthly Repository in 1823?
Thomson.
No, Martineau. Who edited the English Woman's Journal from 1858 to 67?
Parks.
Correct. Which London address gave his name to a circle of feminists which included Barbara Lee Smith and Bessie Rayner Parks?
Langham Place.
Correct. Who was responsible for the foundation of Girton College, Cambridge?
Emily Davis.
Correct. Which Scottish feminist gave a successful course of lectures in New York in 1828 on subjects including the education and emancipation of women?
McLaren.
No, Frances Wright. Who was the woman behind the successful passage of the bill which in 1839 allowed divorced and separated mothers some access to their children?
Norton.
Correct. What personal tragedy led Josephine Butler to undertake rescue work with prostitutes?
Death of a daughter.
Correct. In 1867, who moved an amendment to replace the word man with the word person in the suffrage reform bill?
J.S. Mill.
Correct. Which 19th century feminist was a favourite poet of Queen Victoria?
Pass.
Which British university did Sophia Jex Blake enter as a medical student in 1869 in an attempt to qualify as a doctor?
Edinburgh.
Correct. whose article Wife Torture in England, proposing that wife assault should be made grounds for legal separation, influenced the Matrimonial Causes Act of 1878?
Cobb.
Correct. In 1874, which trade unionist founded the Women's Protective and Provident League?
Besant.
No, Emma Patterson. Who wrote the pamphlet, A Brief Summary in Plain Language of the Most Important Laws Concerning Women, published in 1854? And you may answer.
Caroline Norton.
No, it was Barbara Lee Smith. And at the end of that round, Martin Adaman, you have scored 11 points. There were two passes. In the mid-1850s, the person who pleaded for more opportunities for women in her lectures Sisters of Charity and Community of Labour was Anna Jimison, and the 19th century feminist who was a favourite poet of Queen Victoria was Adelaide Proctor. Martin Adaman, thank you very much. And our fourth contender, please. Your name, please.
John Diamond,
Occupation.
computer consultant.
Your chosen specialised subject.
The history of the Swiss Confederation from 1291 to 1874.
John Diamond, you have 2 minutes on the history of the Swiss Confederation between those dates, starting... Now, in 1291, 3 Swiss valley communities formed the first recorded alliance, Unterwalden, Uri, and which other?
Schwyz.
Correct. Who were the Ausbürger of Bern during the 14th century?
Foreigners, foreign workers.
No, they were citizens who lived outside the city. In 1519, who triggered the Swiss Reformation by sermons he gave in Zurich Great Minster?
Zwingli.
Correct. Who led the Austrian army, which was routed by the men of Schwyz and Uri at Mongarden in 1315?
Leopold.
Correct. Which canton of the Upper Lindt region was in the Confederation from 1352 to 55, rejoining permanently in 1388?
Glarus.
Correct. Around 1437, which city-state closed its markets, resulting in a ruinous civil war?
Zurich.
Correct. Which manuscript, dated around 1470 and expanded in Etterlin's Chronicle, gives the first story of William Tell?
The White Book of Sarnen.
Correct. In 1500, why did Ludovico el Moro, his Swiss mercenaries, refuse to do battle at Novara?
Because they would have fought other Swiss mercenaries.
Correct. At which battle in September 1515 were the Swiss badly defeated and the legend of their invincibility shattered?
Marignano.
Correct. In 1536, who begged Calvin to stay in Geneva to help organize a Reformed church?
Farel.
Correct. What name was given to the alliance formed in 1586 by 7 Catholic cantons?
The Sonderbund.
No, the Borromean League. In 1602, whose attempt to capture Geneva is known as the Escalade?
Duke of Savoy.
Correct. Which action by Louis XIV in 1685 created thousands of French refugees in Switzerland?
Pass.
Which treaty, signed by the Swiss cantons in 1647, was their first attempt to create a unified military force on a federal scale?
Baden.
No, the Defensional of Ville. What name was given to the Confederation's 2 brief religious civil wars of 1656 and 1712?
Kappeli Krieg.
No, the Wilmergen Wars. In August 1792, what event during the Paris Revolution, if that is all finished, in August 1792, what event during the Paris Revolution blighted the Swiss Confederation's relations with France?
The massacre of the Tuileries.
Yes, of the King's Swiss Guards. And at the end of that round, John Diamond, you too have scored 11 points. You passed on just the one, the action by Louis XIV in 1685, which created thousands of French refugees in Switzerland, was a revocation of the Edict of Nantes. John Diamond, thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of the first round, the specialist subject round. Let us glance at the scores, and in 4th place on 8 points is David McCulloch, but there is a triple tie. In the lead at present on 11 points are Ben Maunder, Martin Adaman, and John Diamond. On now to the second round, the general knowledge round, and let me just remind you of the rules of Mastermind as we saw last week, that if there is still a tie at the end of the second round, then the number of passes is taken into consideration, and the contender with the fewer or fewest passes will be adjudged the winner. Now, as always, I'll be calling up the contenders in the ascending order of their first round score. So first of all, please, may we have David McCulloch. He is a museum researcher at Valley Inheritance Museum, Pontypool. Comes originally from Hayes in Middlesex. Lives now in Carmarthen, near Pontypool. Scored 8 points on the life and career of Otto von Bismarck. Your general knowledge questions starting now. Pulex irritans, a creature parasitic to man, is known by what common name?
Mosquito.
No, a flea. On which Mediterranean island was Napoleon Bonaparte born in 1769?
Corsica.
Correct. In mythology, which Latin name is given to the horn of plenty, the symbol of abundance?
Cornucopia.
Correct. Which animal did G.K. Chesterton describe as the devil's walking parody in all four-footed things?
Goats.
No, the donkey. In piano music, what is meant by the instruction una corda?
To use the soft pedal.
Correct. At the end of the Wars of the Roses, whom did Henry VII marry?
Elizabeth of York.
Correct. What term meaning trick or subterfuge is used in bridge to describe a hand with no trumps?
Dummy.
No, chicane. In 1793, the last invasion of the British mainland by a foreign army ended when the invaders signed a surrender in which Welsh port?
Cardiff.
No, Fishguard. The principle stating that when a body is immersed in a fluid, the apparent loss in weight is equal to the weight of the fluid displaced is named after which Greek mathematician?
Archimedes.
Correct. The island of Molokai, associated with the leper colony run by the missionary Father Damien, belongs to which island group?
The Seychelles.
No, Hawaii. In heraldry, what color is sanguine?
Red.
It's crimson, I'll accept that. Which city and state fought against Rome in the Punic Wars?
Carthage.
Correct. Who recently succeeded John Drummond as controller of BBC Radio 3?
Nicholas Kenyon.
Correct. Cob, a traditional walling material, was made from clay or mud, and which other primary component?
Sand.
No, straw. Which radical statesman and orator born in Rochdale in 1811 opposed the Crimean War and was dubbed by Palmerston a peace-at-any-price man?
John Bright.
Correct. FIDE, the Fédération Internationale des Échecs, is a world governing body of which game?
Chess.
Correct. In which West German city on the River Rhine is the birthplace of Beethoven?
Bonn.
Correct. Which English artist, poet, and visionary born in 1757 illustrated the Book of Job and Dante's Divine Comedy? You may answer.
Tenniel. I don't know.
No, it was William Blake. And at the end of that round, David McCulloch, your score has gone up to 19 points and no further passes. Thank you very much. And now Ben Maunder again, please, solicitor from Basingstoke in Hampshire, comes originally from High Wycombe. Scored 11 points on the history of the Rose to be in joint first place at the halfway stage. Your general knowledge questions are starting now. What's the name of the Israeli parliament?
Knesset.
Correct. Which French phrase meaning famous case is used to describe a lawsuit or trial that excites much public interest?
Cause célèbre.
Correct. From 1647 to 48, Charles I was held prisoner in which castle on the Isle of Wight?
Carisbrooke.
Correct. The French writer Jean-Baptiste Poquelin is better known by what name?
Pass.
Which royal title is traditionally given to the second son of a British monarch and was last bestowed in 1986?
Duke of York.
Correct. In which of the United States are the Petrified Forest National Park and the Painted Desert?
Arizona.
Correct. Which Borodin opera, first performed in 1890, features the celebrated Pavlovian dances?
Eugene Onegin.
No, Prince Igor. In English translations of the Bible, what collective term is generally used for the leaders of Israel between Joshua and the kings?
Pass.
The leu of 100 bani is a unit of currency of which East European country?
Bulgaria.
No, Romania. Who was the French drill master of the reign of Louis XIV, whose name is used in English to describe a rigid disciplinarian?
Martinet.
Correct. In the United States, what is the name of the highest appellate law court?
The Supreme Court.
Correct. John Osborne's new play, Déjà Vu, is a sequel to which play premiered in 1956?
The Angry Young Man.
No, Look Back in Anger, it was called. In human anatomy, what is the more common name of the scapula?
The Scalp.
No, the shoulder blade. Who was the son of Philip II of Spain, who died in prison and inspired a tragedy by Schiller and an opera by Verdi?
Don Carlos.
Correct. In 1939 to 40, Carl Gustav Mannerheim led the courageous but unsuccessful defense of which country against invading Soviet forces?
Norway.
No, Finland. Lucian Freud, the grandson of the Austrian psychoanalyst, is noted for his achievements in which field?
Art.
Yes, painting. In the 15th century, in which historic kingdom of Central Europe did the Hussites fight a war against papal and German influences? You may answer.
Switzerland.
No, it was Bohemia. And at the end of that round, Ben Maunder, your score has gone up to 20 points. You passed on to the French writer Jean-Baptiste Poquelin is better known by the name of Molière, and the collective term used in English translations of the Bible for that the leaders of Israel between Joshua and the kings were the judges. Ben Maunder, thank you very much. And now Martin Adaman again, please. He teaches history at Sandown High School on the Isle of Wight. He lives in Bonchurch on the Isle of Wight, originally comes from Harrogate in Yorkshire, scored 11 points on British feminists to be lying in joint first place at the end of the first round. The target you have to beat now is 20, and your general knowledge questions are starting. Now, what was the usual secret agent number of James Bond?
007.
Correct. Which government publication outlining rules of conduct on the road must be known, understood, and obeyed by all drivers?
The Highway Code.
Correct. In 1906, which Scottish socialist became the first chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party?
MacDonald.
No, Keir Hardie. Which independent body established by Royal Charter in 1946 became the principal channel for government aid to the arts in Britain?
The Arts Council.
Correct. Lulworth skippers, gatekeepers, and hair streaks are varieties of which common insect?
Butterfly.
Correct. Who was a communist leader of Albania from the Second World War until his death in 1985?
Hodge.
Correct. Vaduz is the capital of which European principality?
Liechtenstein.
Correct. Who is the Austrian-born actress and singer who appeared in several stage works by her husband, Kurt Weill?
Pass.
In an ancient custom of the Christian Church, the foreheads of worshippers are marked with ashes on the first day of which penitential season?
Lent.
Correct. At Oxford University, the spring term is known by what name?
Pass.
In 1982, who became General Secretary of the AUEW, now the Amalgamated Engineering and Electrical Union?
Pass.
Which novel by Alex Haley tells the story of Kunti Kinte and his descendants?
Roots.
Correct. What name derived from Russian meaning self-publishing house is given to clandestine or illegal publishing?
Pass.
In the 1950s, the educationalist James Pittman developed the ITA to help young children learn to read. What does ITA stand for in this context?
Pass.
Of which Caribbean island associated with the United States is San Juan the capital?
Puerto Rico.
Correct. What color is the pigment umber?
Brown.
Correct. According to Bede, in the 5th century, which Teutonic people settled in Kent, the Isle of Wight, and the mainland opposite?
The Jutes.
Correct. What name is given to the 180th meridian of longitude modified to avoid land and to avoid dividing countries?
The International Date Line.
Is correct. And at the end of that round, Martin Adaman, your score has gone up to 23 points. Five passes. The wife of Kurt Weill, the Austrian-born actress and singer, is Lotte Lenya. The spring term at Oxford is known as the Hillary term. The General Secretary of the AUEW, now the Amalgamated Engineering and Electrical Union, is Gavin Laird. And the name for clandestine or illegal publishing from the Russian is samizdat. And finally, ITA, the development by James Pittman to help young children learn to read, stands for Initial Teaching Alphabet. Martin Adaman, thank you very much. And finally, John Diamond again, please, a computer consultant from Albourne near Marlborough, comes originally from Par in Cornwall. Scored 11 points on the history of the Swiss Confederation to be lying in joint first place at the halfway stage. The target you have to beat now is 23. And your general knowledge questions are starting now. What is a flotilla?
A group of boats.
Yes, it's a small group of boats. Who was the first Director General of the BBC?
Lord Reith.
Correct. In the phrase kith and kin refers to relations. What does kith mean?
Neighbours.
No, friends. Yes, neighbours are friends. I'll accept that. After the election last April, who was appointed Secretary of State for Health?
William Waldegrave.
No, Virginia Bottomley. Which Scottish engineer, who became Surveyor General for Roads in 1827, devised a method of road building which is known by his name?
Macadam.
Correct. In golf, what name is given to the closely mown turf between the tee and the green?
The fairway.
Correct. What name derived from the title of an 18th century earl is given to a mechanical model of the solar system?
An orrery.
Correct. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born in Salzburg. In which city did he die?
Vienna.
Correct. Which film star was born Greta Gustafsson in Sweden in 1905 and spent most of her life in America?
Greta Garbo.
Correct. What is the name of the widely quoted index of prices on the Wall Street Stock Exchange based on an average of 30 leading industrial shares?
Dow Jones.
Correct. Which territory, ceded to Germany in 1871 after the Franco-Prussian War, was returned to France after the First World War?
Alsace-Lorraine.
Correct. In the Old Testament, Benjamin was the youngest son of Jacob. Who was the eldest?
Joseph.
No, Reuben. Who wrote the intended epitaph? Nature and nature's laws lay hid in night. God said, let Newton be, and all was light.
Tennyson.
No, Alexander Pope. In computing, what does the acronym DOS stand for?
Disk Operating System.
Correct. What are Sombra, Royal Sovereign, and Smith-Snall Automatic?
Lighthouses, lightships.
They're weather stations. I'll accept that. Which French Impressionist artist sculpted in wax The Little Dancer of 14 Years, exhibited in 1881?
Degas.
Correct. In which English county is the Vale of Pewsey?
That's in Wiltshire.
Correct. Which planet's existence was predicted by Adams and Leverrier and confirmed by Galley and Darré in 1846?
Neptune.
Correct. And at the end of that round, John Diamond, you have scored 26 points and no further passes. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of another close-fought round, the general knowledge round. Let us look at the scores. And in fourth place on 19 points is David McCulloch. In third place on 20 points, Ben Maunder. In second place on 23 points, Martin Adaman. But the winner this week on 26 points is a computer consultant from Aldbourne, John Diamond. So John Diamond becomes our second semi-finalist for Mastermind 1993. Our congratulations to him. Our thanks, commiserations to the other three gallant contenders. Well, that's all for this week, and all that it remains for me to do now is to say a very warm thank you to the authorities here at the University College of North Wales in Bangor for all the kindness and hospitality which they've shown us while we've been here. Now, next time we'll be near my own doorstep in Scotland at the University of Strathclyde. So until then, from Mastermind in Bangor, it's goodbye.
See what happens when a tough new director arrives at the Bayview Retirement Home. Coming up next on Waiting for God.